And that's been really just in the last few months that I finally just hit that saturation point to be like, I can't do all this myself. Like when I first started, it wasn't that I didn't anticipate that in the beginning, or it was a little bit, but where I'm at now, when I was just going to have spray teams, that's just local stuff, that's nothing. But now that this has grown to a national level, and that there's so many other facets to this, the sales and the dealership and the trailer, so many other things. Now I'm gladly getting people in to pass those off to, because they're doing great for me in those capacities, because that's their focus, that's their, whereas used to I was just spread across everything, I was spread so thin. Now I'm getting my strength back to where I'm like, because I really need to be in about 2 or 3 areas, like education and consulting is really where I need to live at, the content creation, that's like my 3 I need to stay in. So getting people in those areas is the best thing I can do.
Welcome to the TrustBuilt Podcast. Here's your host, Alan Bennett, and special guest today, Jonathan Cottingham.
This is a podcast for entrepreneurs where we discuss the journey of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Alan Bennett, and today's guest, we've got Jonathan Cottingham, and Jonathan is going to share his story of entrepreneurship, how he got started, the business he's in, and all the fun stuff. I will say fun with entrepreneurs. So welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So for those that probably follow this podcast know that I've got a marketing team that helps me find people, right? I'm not that good. And when they find somebody, they'll send me, hey, here's somebody we found. Here's what they do. Are you interested in talking with this person? And when I saw what you do, I was like fascinated with that whole drone, everything. So I want to get your journey, but talk just a little bit about the business that you're in right now.
So it's people really don't know about it, and it's really it's fairly new. The whole industry is not even 5 years old. So I'm in, I guess you would call it precision agriculture with chemical application with drones. So I use smaller drones to scan fields or remote sensing that collects data and information. Those drones are less than 5 pounds, and then I've got drones that are up to 245 pounds, almost 11 feet wide, that are able to put out chemicals from the air. Whereas used to we would use planes or helicopters, or the farm would use a tractor. We can use drones now to put these chemicals out, and if we use them in conjunction with a scan drone, it's a lot more accurate. We save on chemicals, water, battery, life consumptions, things like that. So it's just marrying those two together, and the tech and industry. I mean, it's only 5 years old. These were first approved in 2019, but not really put to use till 2020, 2021. And just in the last year, have they really absolutely exploded. And now those of us that have been in it for the longest are kind of the elders or the experts. And I hate to be called that or anything. It's hard to do something for a few years and be called an expert but the industry itself is I've been in it since the start. So it's got its roots, going all the way back to, probably the 2013, 2014, but just in what we're doing now, 2 or 3 years, or maybe 4 max. So it's like I said, very new industry.
Wow. And of course I'm not a farmer, but I grew up in Southeast Arkansas. And so I understand the farming community, but I'm a hunter and I definitely understand food plots, right? So the whole concept of what you're doing is something that I've seen in how technology has grown. And I want to get to that. Let's take a step back. How did your entrepreneurial journey, did it start with this, or just talk about the steps that led up to the getting into this?
That's a hard one, and that's really entrepreneur. I didn't start this to get to this level. And that's something anyone's talked to me, they know. My goals and aspirations were to have like 2 spray teams, retire at 60. My dad and granddad were crop dusters. So it's the area I'm in is probably one of the best agriculture areas in the country. More rice comes from Northeast Arkansas than anywhere else in the country. So just in my area, agriculture is supreme. That's just
Mhm.
everywhere you go. I graduated high school with some of the biggest farm families. You just get a part of agriculture just from indoctrination just at a young age. It's just normal for us to go out in the fields and go out on the farms and go do things. And I mean, I can remember one of my buddies, come to school one morning in his tractor. He had to get out early and go, do a few things on the farm, and he didn't have time to go get his truck. So he just drove the tractor to school because it's right there. The farmland is right next to the school. So, that was normal. So that was just the area I was in. It's not that way anymore. Couldn't get a tractor in the parking lots with everything, but back then that was normal. It was 2000. I graduated high school in 2001, so that was just how we did things. And so I actually went medicine first. I used to be a nurse practitioner.
Mhm.
Healthcare is hard. Anybody that has been in it understands the toll it takes on you mentally, emotionally, physically. And I've been flying drones since 2013, and this is always kind of in the back of my mind. And I just had an opportunity to get into this, and I had a phenomenal mentor who really led me. He's previously was in the FAA, Air Force, just so many accolades. But he just kind of gave me a heads up, like, hey, they're going to, bring these to agriculture, and you should take it. That's something you should do. It's so he really helped me a lot. And he kind of, one of his things is like, when you get to a point, you need to take a step back and then help the next generation because I helped you. And I didn't think it'd be after a few years, but now I've already got apprentices that are graduating high school this year that I have got 5 of them. So now I'm helping them come up in this industry as well.
Yeah, let's and that, it's funny that you bring up mentors. That is a topic that each episode that I have, that's something that everybody's got their story about mentorship. For me personally, I had a couple of people that they knew they were my mentors, and then there was a couple people that they kind of had to figure it out that, hey,
Right.
this guy's asking me all kinds of questions. So when
Right.
you tell me about the mentorship, did you go to this guy? Did he come to you? How did that
He
relationship
was
start?
actually he was a family friend.
Mm,
He was a family friend, and someone I always respected. Was just so on another level, just of intelligence and circumstance, but just so down to earth. Just a great guy. Probably the smartest person I've ever met. Me and him just had a good connection. I think he saw my hard work, and just kind of, I was in this. He knew. I guess he knew I was in drones, and I guess when he heard in his interactions how drones were changing what they were offering, he was just kind of calling me, giving me a heads up, and then kind of saying, "Why don't you do that?" And it was like, "I've never done that. I don't know." He's like, "Well, no one's done it, so do it."
yeah.
And so a lot of kind words, a lot of phone calls, met with me several times. So just phenomenal guy. Just couldn't have done it without him, and he knows it. And I tell him that all the time. And he's very, humble. Oh no, you'd have done it anyway. And I was like, I don't know, I wouldn't have. So just, and I don't think, like I said, he turned into he probably always was a mentor to an extent, but to this level, it was nothing intended. And it's
Mm.
just he saw what he was helping him do and saw my drive and knew that I was going to go somewhere with it. So that was, just him kind of doing his part. And then now, you're going to do my part next.
Yeah. So, and I think I heard you earlier say he had, is he a pilot or he had some experience in flying?
Yes, he's very humble. I'm limited on what all I can say about him, but he's any abbreviation that has to do with aviation, he's been involved with it. So he is just phenomenal. I can't thank him enough, and he won't ever let me say his name or anything about him. But just a great guy. Yeah,
Yeah, I love those people that are like that way. They're very humble.
yeah.
All right. So when this started, when you were having the discussion to this area of career that you're going to go into, did you already have like a pilot's license? What was your experience with flying?
I had a 10. So in the U.S., the FAA, federal, they 107 is a commercial drone pilot. That's a badge I made. But that's a commercial drone pilot, so you have to take a test, and it's not a hard test. You just have to study for it. With drones, it's a lot right now. It's getting harder, but initially it was basically we didn't have. I forget what year the 107 came out, but I got it, and that was just to do commercial. And that was the thing. If you're going to fly your drone, make any money off of it, you have to have a 107. So I had that. but then getting into the chemical side and what I'm doing now, I mean, there's just been so many more licenses, so many more things I've had to get as I've ascended up.
So there's a certification for the flying, and then there's other certifications or permits associated with chemical applications.
Yes, so it's like a 137s for the economic aerial dispensable poisons from the FAA. You have to get exemptions. They grant those to your company. You have a chief pilot, and then you've got state licenses through the plant board that regulates chemical application and things like that. So you have to get all those licenses. So there's several agencies you have to get licenses with and permits and things like that.
So when you're looking at going down this path, let's talk a little bit about like that moment. Usually there's this trigger moment. I know for me, when I first started my first business, I was in the corporate world, and I'm like, I am fed up with this, and I'm going to do my own thing. It's just I'm wired that way. And I specifically remember sitting on the couch talking to my wife, having the conversation about, I'm going to find a way to get out of this job, and I'm going to do this. And that mental switch that happened. Did you have something like that? What was it when you finally said, I'm leaving nurse practitioner, I'm leaving this behind and moving forward with the new?
That's a hard one for me to say because there were so many. It's a culmination of things, both from losing patients or just the nature of healthcare, to some personal things in my life, to just it was a perfect storm for. I don't. There wasn't a specific switch that flipped. It was more so one of those things of I'm okay. I'm going to start doing this, and honestly, and that's a lot of what I do now is consulting, because once you start doing this, it's just a laundry list of things you have to do and achieve and complete and check off and do, to where, I mean, it's very in depth. And so when I've got a lot of people because I have a dealership. So when I sell to them, I do offer, hey, we've got consulting to where we will walk you through every bit of it. They're like, no, it's fine. I'll figure it out. And 9 out of 10 come back and they're like, please help. Please walk me through this. And then I start walking through, and anyone that starts out with it, or anyone that's really been through business well, and they understand how consultants work and see and they know, they know even a little bit about what this takes, they right away get it. They're like, no, please just walk me through this. So, and I've got one client who has sent me 3 more full clients that have signed on as well, because he was like, I don't want to answer any questions. I don't want them calling me asking me this. I want, they can ask you. And so sees the power in the consulting to where he's like, hey, you took care of me all the way up. Anytime they have questions, they call me. And then now he sent me 3 more. They're doing the same thing, because he's like, with this being, what it is, a lot of stuff you think you can just text people, but then it just keeps adding on to where now it's like consulting. Everyone just gets the consulting.
Yeah. So let's go back to this the drone itself. You said something like it's like 11 feet or
Oh,
something.
it's 11. We're counting the props. It's almost 11 feet wide. Max
Okay.
weight's about 245 pounds lift off. They're good size. They're big. You
You
can
haul it
look
right
up.
on a trailer or something? How's this?
Yes. So we've got, you can do, I mean, if the arms fold up and the props fold up to where it's probably, I can get my arms just around it. So I'm like 6 foot tall, but I can get my arms just barely around it and kind of barrel pick it up. Empty, it's about 75 pounds, I think. And then with a battery, it's another 30 pounds. And then you have between 88 and 120 pounds of load on it. So, yeah, so they get to be pretty big. But yeah, we have specialized trailers to where we do, chemical application with it, because you have to have, a generator, you have to have power set up, fresh water, a mixed tank, chemicals, personal protective equipment, just a lot of things go with that. So we've kind of, something else we've got into recently was the trailer building, just because we've done it for so long, and there's new people that are offering trailers, and some of these people have never sprayed, and they're just offering these trailers. I was kind of like, that's not practical. Like, I don't know. And so at that point, and for me, a lot of what I do is I'm a 3rd generation there. My dad and granddad were crop dusters. My boys are in their teens, so one of them is probably going to come up to be the 4th. A lot of what I do is focused on family and the generational thing. And so for me, I feel like I'm kind of safeguarding this profession for my boys coming up to pass to them.
Yeah. So let's talk about starting. did you like a loan? Did you have to get, where did the financing, did you go to a bank and go, hey guys, let me tell you what I'm about to do? How did it work?
No, because I went through a divorce and didn't have anything of sustenance. Started out very slow. Um, you know, my parents were involved with some of it, just equipment wise. A lot of spraying and going. I did some, partnerships with some clients that had their own equipment initially, just because I kind of had the knowledge and they want to use it. Because in farming, there's a lot of loans and a lot of money that goes into it. So a lot of times you'll have farmers get equipment and they can't use it. So kind of the first few ones were me coming in with already them having equipment and saying, hey, I know how to do all this. I'll run you through it. And then we kind of worked something out to where I was using kind of like a barter system for work, using the equipment for teaching them and bringing them up. And then I did spray some for them.
So let's talk a little bit about getting the first customer or client, whatever you call the person that you sell to. How did you structure that conversation?
So in ag, there's two clients. There's spray clients, and then there's like sales clients now for like equipment and consulting. First spray clients was just having the equipment and just knowing it was like I said, I grew up in the farming community, so it was calling people already knew to say, hey, I've got this. You want to see it? You want to do it? Of course, initially everyone was just like, oh, that doesn't work. I heard you can spray a garden with the drone, but you can't spray a field, just because they were smaller when we first started. They held like 1.8 gallons. Now they hold about 10.5. So they're a lot bigger. So initially, it was just kind of leaning on the contacts and going through the sources I knew. As far as sales go, when I switched over to consulting and did that, that was through like social media, like Facebook, and doing posts and stuff like that. There was already some groups for spray drones, so being in there and just kind of saying, "Hey, here's my background. Here's what I do. You may want to, may need any help." And so it slowly built from there. And then a lot of it was just kind of showcasing what I'd already done the last few years and just having that as examples to show. Because I think a lot of people, of course, before they sign on or do something, they want to make sure you've done all this in the past. So that's been a lot of the last year, is getting everything uploaded, getting my website, getting a base so that people can come in and just information overload everything on my socials, on my website, things like that.
As you grew in the first, it sounds like you grew really fast. So let's kind of look at the first couple of 3 years getting started. How did you build a team out to help support that growth? What did that look like?
I would say the growth has been in the last year, and I can pinpoint a date. It's June of last year that when that's when the FAA changed guidelines. Used to there took 11 to 18 months to get approved to what we do now. Now it takes like 6 to 8 weeks. So so you have just a rush into this space to people like, oh, I want to do this now. So then those us elder ones, some of us continue to spray, some left. A few of us went consulting route just to help the guys coming up. So as far as my staff goes, it's been, I kind of looked at where I was weakest at, and a lot of that was software, remote sensing, and organizational. And so I've got, Mike was kind of the first employee I brought on. He's my director of operations, remote sensing now. So he was first, and then after that, I started adding in like social media, content, sales, and then I've replaced myself out of the teams to where now I've got a chief of operations that runs teams now, and then we've got other pilots and people being trained coming up now. So it's really just kind of looking, and this was Mike's advice about replacing myself out of so many areas.
Yeah. On social media, that person, did you hire them as an employee, or did you contract it out? Did you have
A
somebody?
little bit of both. I did more so of a social media part. Was more. I had friends and family that helped. I did a little bit myself. I did some social media stuff in the past. Now the content creator I have now, I've had them since December. But it was making a post, and then they said, hey, I can do all this stuff, and that's one of those things. You have to hand off, because it's doesn't matter how many hats you have. If you don't look good in any of them, you wear 10 hats, but you look terrible in all of them. So
Yeah.
that's what I was at. I was wearing too many hats, and I wasn't doing a good job to my level. I wasn't doing a great enough job in any of them. So now I'm handing out things and divvying that out. And people that know me, they're like, well, I'm sure you have a problem, handing it off. I'm like, no. I'm like, I want someone to take this. And that's been really just in the last few months that I finally just hit that saturation point to be like, I can't do all this myself. When I first started, it wasn't that I didn't anticipate that in the beginning, or it was a little bit, but where I'm at now, when I was just going to have spray teams, that's just local stuff. That's nothing. But now that this has grown to a national level and that there's so many other facets to this, the sales and the dealership and the trailer, so many other things. Now I'm gladly getting people in to pass those off to because they're doing great for me in those capacities because that's their focus. That's their, whereas used to, I was just spread across everything and I was spread so thin. Now I'm getting my strength back to where I'm like, oh, because I really need to be in about 2 or 3 areas, like education and consulting is really where I need to live at, and content creation. That's like my 3 I need to stay in. So, getting people in those areas was the best thing I could do.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those that are listening to this, he just described how not to be owner dependent. So that's the language that as exit planner, that's owner dependency is one of those things that cripple companies and it'll bring an owner to their knees. So what you just described was how to get out of that trap. And it's a trap. Everybody thinks they have to do it. And it usually is. So it's usually rooted in trust. People don't ever use that word, but you have to trust others in order to get things done. So talk through a little bit, since you were able to get out of wearing 10 different hats or whatever it was, and you started to transition and you recognize, how'd that work? Did you recognize strengths in others? Was it self-directed? How did you do that?
I think I have a decent feel for people. So when I would meet them or talk to them, I didn't ever hire anybody blindly. I had to see things first. And so I definitely met people and talked to them and definitely talked to them, got a feel for them, and kind of, interviewed and kind of asked the questions that I thought were pertinent. And then I wanted to see some background and history, see what they'd done, and then kind of just taught them what I was doing and how I was going about it, and then saying this is the direction I kind of want to go, and then slowly taking a step back to see if they're going to lean in and then take ownership of that. And that way, I'm fortunate that everyone that I've leaned back from has leaned forward. But that I didn't just blindly lean back. I kind of got a really good feel for them, researched them, let them know how things were going, and then, you know, gave them as clear a job description and title as I could, and then say, okay, this is what I'm thinking, this is where I'm going. I'm always here, and you're gonna. I hope you get better than me in what I'm tasking you to do, because I don't want to be the expert in this. But this is the max I'm at right now. I've taken you here, and then I step back to see if they're going to go past where I was, and I've been fortunate that all of them have so far.
Yeah, yeah. So the task delegation has a process, and you went through that process with each of the employees, where you slowly started turning over. You started trusting them to get their job done, and then some. And so the leaning in is when they finally began to trust you. Is what it sounds like to me.
Right.
Yeah, so it sounds mutual. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I don't run into this very often. This is great. Let's talk a little bit
This is
about,
all new. If anyone that knows, this is just been in the last few months that this has happened.
yeah,
So it's not like I started out and I was just knocking things out of the park. Because anybody that knows my journey and struggle, it's been a struggle. Nothing's been perfect. Nothing's been great. Everything has been an issue at one point. And so, probably one of the few good traits I have is just resilience, determination, stubbornness, whatever you want to call it. Just keep moving forward. Just
yeah,
get up and try and keep going. I mean, I guess for me, to be a really entrepreneur and kind of thinking of your podcast, like that's just one thing you're going to have to do is just keep moving forward. Like you're going to get hit with everything and things you could never imagine. And you got to take a step back and evaluate it and then take that step right back forward.
yeah. There's, the what I seem to run into quite often is the lack of perseverance, because we all struggle at some point. Some people don't struggle very long, and some people struggle for years. And, I remember when my first business I opened up, I remember on Wednesday looking at the bank account, and I knew payroll was coming Friday, and I didn't have it. I didn't have it. And I remember I didn't sleep worth a damn Wednesday night or Thursday night. And then miraculously, usually the money would be there, but then it was this cycle, this dreadful cycle. And getting unstuck from that is a challenge, right? So talk a little bit about a pivotal moment. So for me, I remember when I got into wedding catering, the first one, that was the one. I never then struggled from cash flow once I figured out how to do it. So for you, was there a pivotal moment to where, okay, I've turned the corner. I don't have to look at my bank balance every 2 hours. When did it start to turn for you?
It was actually this past spring when we started prepping for the growing season. That begins February, March. I had done some trade shows and done some agri shows and stuff like that. And it's just the nature of this business. There's going to be pretty much two busy seasons. It's going to be like probably in the fall after harvest, and then springtime when everyone's prepping and getting ready. So for me, that was, like I said, it's probably just this past spring, to where so many people came and signed up and got this and got that, to where then at that point I could kind of breathe a little bit, but
Mm.
it wasn't. I was still, and that's one thing. And this is blessing and a curse. Like you said, you don't have to check the bank balance every 2 hours. I know what's in there, and I know what's coming in and going, and so I don't. That's a different stress I have, but I've just swapped that stress out with something else. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
something else that's going to take it. I mean, that's where, of course, but I also don't live like I've made any of that money too. Like I have
Mm.
not changed anything. Like I have not bought any housing or any big things to account for that. Anything I did make, I put right back into the company and into my spray teams, and putting the goal for me of putting the money was back to replacing myself and being
Mm.
not owner dependent, to where that money just went straight back into where some would taken it and spent this or went out on a vacation or something. I just took it and put it right back. I was like, well, that's another person I can hire and
Yeah.
take this, because my goal is 20. Everyone knows that it's 2025 is my year that I really want to be able to take a step back, and then no one noticed I took a step back. That's my goal, is to take a step back and just see if it's going to run without me. Even just a few weeks ago, I was gone, and I've identified what I think is probably the last of my stress areas that I am in the last 2 weeks have been tightening up.
Mm.
And I'm thinking that this last iteration now is going to be where 2025, I really didn't know if I was going to make that goal, but now I think I may even hit that this fall, but we'll just have to see. But it's just been and that's really for me, I think just putting everything I have back into it. Knowing that because I have, and you can't talk about exit planning. It's funny. There's really two people know my exit plan and know that I was even considering it. But it's a set amount of years, and it's not very long. And I said, by this, spot, when it gets here, I either want to take a step back and let it run itself, and just because and that's something I'm stressed out. I love what I do. I love being in the field. I love being with farm families. I love educating. I love we are making a massive difference, in nature, in agriculture with families. People are able to grow better, cleaner, more. There's more food on the table. There's more money for the farmers. It's better for the environment. We're using less water, less chemicals. We're battery powered. We use 10 gallons of gas. You use 8 to 10 times that for a tractor or a plane. So we're having a definite, and that's just one facet of it. That's agriculture or farming. I'm involved in Department of Defense contract for public health and protection. And so I'm involved in several other things that are benefiting on a grand scale. And that's really what I want to get to just doing those projects, because those, yes, they pay, but they pay in a different way, to where
Mm.
but I can't get to those if I don't have this running in the background or even next to me, because sometimes those, I'm trying to think what we call those. those projects that may not come to too much fruition or too much income, but they mean a lot to you and they kind of give you sustenance for what you're doing. Because I don't, like with healthcare, I started out just helping people, and that was great. And then you get to the point to where it's just money. And when
Mm.
you're doing something just for money, there's no meaning to it, and you lose purpose and you lose everything. I still have purpose what I'm doing now, and I don't ever want to lose that because I lost that in medical. Probably not at a level I could have stopped at, but as high as I went, I lost purpose. It just became a clock to punch and money to make. Now I still like what I do. I don't get up and dread what I do. I get up and dread how much I have to do, but I still love talking to people and going out and doing things and seeing the difference it makes with them. And people still get excited. This is fun because at its core, I mean, at its core, I mean, you're kind of playing with a big toy. You got a big controller, and you kind of difference between a man and a boy is the price of their toys. So I mean, you've got these toys, and some of these are toys. Some of these are really fun. So that's at its heart. I like doing that stuff, but like that's a search and rescue drone. So like if someone's missing, we've done like a silver alert, like an elderly person is missing, animals were missing. We'll do search and rescue. It's got thermal, so we'll do search and rescue with it. After storms, I've flown it looking for people that were trapped or stuff like that. So that's the good stuff, and that doesn't pay anything at all. That's all volunteer, but that's something I offer in my area.
Yeah. So let's wrap up talking about, you kind of given us a glimpse of the future, right? Where you're going. Let's talk about your industry in general, and then go into how your business fits that industry and what that growth will look like in the future.
Um, I think with this industry and this area where it's going, it's tethered directly to uh, advances in technology. So with us, it's going to be better batteries, bigger batteries, or right now we're limited solely by our battery because we're battery powered. There's some talks with gas powered, uh, but right now we're battery powered. And so with us, the evolution has come as the drones became more advanced. The spray systems, the collision systems, GPS systems were advanced. Also tank capacity, like I said, we went from 1.8 to 10 and a half. We really as so that's just going to be something we're constantly going to be changing is more tank capacity, lower batteries, the batteries ascend up, tanks come up, so it's just a constant increase. But I think with our industry, crop dusting is very dangerous. The amount of funerals I've went to over the years, more than I could ever remember. So with me, when my drone crashes, I'm mad, but I'm alive, and that's a
Right.
big thing. And I think eventually, I think all chemical application from the air is going to be from drones. And I've even got some ground drones that can spray. So I think if this industry is going to be eventually fully automated to where all the chemical application, everything's done, from a drone.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned safety. I can think, because I grew up in Southeast Arkansas, that it was just a matter of time before some crop duster went down. I remember from when I was a kid, we lost a guy just a year and a half ago down in Lake Village. Um, it was just a freak accident. He was a great pilot, just things like that. So my hat's off to you for, going down this path for a safer way to do the same thing. Now, as far as consulting goes, all right. So that's a different path that you've talked about. So that has evolved out of you getting the business to where the business is successful. So the concept of the business is successful. Then you've seen the demand for others wanting to be able to do what you do. Is that part of your drive to step back and say, okay, let somebody else handle the operation? I think you alluded to that a little bit earlier, that let somebody else run it and then you focus on helping others do more of the same. Did
Yes.
I catch that right?
Yeah, so that's kind of more of it was previously out of necessity because there was just no one else, and some people that were stepping up to be an expert kind of rudely. I was just kind of like, we haven't, no. To me, it was just a safety concern to kind of be like, because I think when people, and the thing is the more we learn, the more you are educated, the more you learn, the more you should realize how much you don't know.
Mm.
And so I think when some people step forward and they're like, oh yeah, I can teach these other people, I'm like, you don't, like, I know you don't know. Like, so for me, it's a very transparent with everything. I'm like, hey, you can look on my socials, you can see everything that I do. So there's no guessing. You shouldn't have to surmise, what level I can take you to. You can just watch all the content, watch all the videos, and see everything for yourself. So for me, consulting kind of came out of it's my inherent drive to help people. So with that, it's helping farm families, because I call them farm families because if you're familiar with agriculture, it's not just one person, dad or whoever doing it. It's going to be husband and wife and kids and aunts and cousins and uncles and everyone involved in it. And I've got a specific farm I'm working with now to where they've got probably 8 people from the family involved doing it. So it's just teaching that, and it's just teaching safety, and it's just making sure this is done right, and it's just contributing my part on so many. This area affects so many other areas, the environment, people's income, the food we have on our table. There's just so many benefits to it that it's hard for me to narrow that down.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show. This has been fantastic. Before the last thing I've got, when somebody comes to you, let's say I came to you and say, hey, I want to get in this drone business, what would be the first thing that I would need to know before I started down that path?
The first thing you would need to know is what you want to do with it. Do you want to scan? Do you want to spray? If you do, look at where you're at and what you can do. Do research, get online. Facebook group has a lot of groups for spray drones. You can Google a lot of it. But yeah, I would narrow down what you want to do in it, because it may seem narrowed, but once you get into this space, I've got a fellow applicator in Wisconsin. He and I talk about all the time how even within our narrowed spray drone community, you have specialists like in farming and row crop, and you've got aquatics, and you've got forestry, and you've got you got all these other little subset specialties come out. So it'd be really figuring out what you want to do, what your area is, what you can offer, and just seeing if that's something that I would gauge the need for it. Which even if you don't think there's a need for it, I'd be hard pressed to find any area in the country that wouldn't benefit from chemical application with drones and remote sensing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great advice. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. So we'll have to get a video next time of one of these. So if somebody wanted to see what you're doing, would they go to like Facebook? How do they find this?
So we got Southern Drone Ops, OPS.com. And then we've got youtube.com/@ Southern Drone Ops. And then Facebook is facebook.com/Southern Drone Ops, Instagram, TikTok as well. They should pop right up all my socials, so they can see all the videos, see everything on there. I release several videos a week of what we're doing. So.
Yeah, and if they wanted to reach out to you about doing this, how do they find you? Would they go through the same channels?
Yes, they can send a message on any of those platforms, and my website has a contact us form, so they can send any questions they have about that. But I mean, it's a very new industry, but it's going to be massive. Just the contracts already that we've dealt with, and everywhere I go, it's finding, especially because I've been in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, Florida, Arkansas, Tennessee, Missouri. It's basically the Southwest. I've been to all those, and I've got like Montana and a couple other places coming up. Every area I go to, it's not what we can. It's not ever a need of can we do this. It's always we can always do that. It's finding their specialty in their niche. I go to areas that don't have row crops. We may be spraying for mosquitoes, or maybe spraying invasive weeds like kudzu or something like that. So it's just every area is a little different. We just have to figure out what's going to be beneficial in their area.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. I appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan.